The report of a rifle tore the morning air crisp and familiar in our country corner where hunters prowled public land. I hardly jumped, thinking it was another reckless shot. Then there was the scream. Ethan's voice harsh and splintering, cutting through the pines like a knife. My heart stumbled. The feed sacks dropped from my hands, bursting on the driveway as I ran towards the noise. Boots pounding gravel pulse, obliterating all else, cresting the hill to the southern pasture. I braked hard. Ethan knelt in the ground, holding Tinker's small neck, blood trickling through his fingers, soaking the miniature horse's white coat with crimson Tinker. The pony Ethan trained for 3 years, who bowed and danced and trailed him like a shadow. A man stood yards away, rummaged through dangling, looking irritable as if he was the victim, and there, arms crossed smug as a dictator, was Vanessa Reed. Her pearls shone her clipboard, clutched like a trophy. In that moment, I could have buried her in that pasture and not have blinked. They called it an accident, said a miniature horse shouldn't be running wild, but when the sheriff tracked the permission slip, Vanessa's name was written all over it, and it was her last day as a free woman. That morning had dawned perfect, the kind that tricks you into thinking the world is kind. The sun came up in a golden haze, dew shimmering on fences like diamonds. Ethan was already in the pasture with Tinker. The small horse, no larger than a retriever, keen as a tack, stuck to my son's side. Ethan whistled and Tinker spun, rearing back before dropping into a bow, scoring a carrot and a grin. This was their week, the state youth championship, a chance at sponsorships, perhaps even scholarships. After losing his mom, Ethan had been adrift, but Tinker gave him purpose, a spark that caused my chest to hurt with pride. I was working on the stock trailer when Vanessa's voice sliced through the piece like a rusty saw. She was standing on our property line, one practical shoeit-tapping clipboard clutched like she meant to bludgeon someone. Vanessa was an HOA president, but she played like she owned the county, patrolling every mailbox and flower bed, for reasons known only to her and her stylist, whom she hated, our ranch. Morning, she called oozing accusation. Morning. I grunted, not lifting up perimeter check. She declared, itch away business. Perimeter of what I fired back. You don't own beyond your driveway? She sniffed, writing vehemently, probably ticketing me for excessive happiness. I let her prattle on about community standards as I worked, refusing to rise to the bait. She flounced off in her golf cart, almost running over Hen, muttering in her phone. I ought to have known she was scheming. Around noon, Ethan and I went into town for show supply, shelters, bedding, peppermint treats he'd stored away. We were gone. 2 hours. Coming back onto the ranch road, I saw 3 mudcake trucks, rifles racked across tailgates. My stomach turned over. I gunned the engine, Ethan shouting before I could stop. He jumped out, and I tore after him. There was Tinker, crumpled like a discarded toy, blood-pooling chest hardly rising. Ethan wailed, rocking him. Boot prints marked the pasture. Hunters milled around. Some laughed, others annoyed. Vanessa stood as if hosting a gala. Sheriff Dan's cruiser sat idling by the gate, his voice low and angry as he questioned a hunter. I stormed towards Vanessa, who held up a hand like she was waiting for a crown. I sanctioned a controlled hunt, she chirped. Wild Hog's community safety words failed me. Fury yielded to chill emptiness. You sanctioned, I rasped, as HOA safety coordinator. She longed. You ought to be grateful. Sheriff Dan handed her a yellow card. Read it, he said. Notice of investigation, criminal trespass, reckless endangerment. The smile of Vanessa trembled. But I'd had permission, she spluttered. On land you do not own. Pass no trespassing signs. Dan snapped. Ethan's sobs resonated. His hands red-and-eyed with Tinker's blood. I knew 2 things. Vanessa would not escape, and she'd underestimated the hell she'd unleashed. Sheriff Dan held Vanessa at his cruiser as deputies interviewed the hunters. I knelt beside Ethan, helpless, as he trembled, face hidden in Tinker's mane. The last time he wept like that was at his mother's funeral. An hour later, the trucks of the hunter were towed for evidence. Vanessa, unfazed, waved papers in my face, saying our pasture wasn't fenced, according to some HOA survey. The falsehood was ridiculous. Our 6-foot wire fence, posted with red placards every 20 feet, was not a secret. She raved about wildlife dangers, her voice shrill. Dan intervened, stopping her, and gave me an incident report. The hunters are charged with illegal hunting, unauthorized discharge of firearm, and prohibited ammo. Vanessa, by inviting them, was neck-deep in risk, trespass, endangerment, even endangering Ethan's life. My fists balled so tight my knuckles popped. At home, Ethan walked upstairs, closing his door quietly. A sound that slit deeper than a slam. I took out my binder. Years of HOA harassment had shown me. To record everything Vanessa wanted conflict, she'd get one. The second day, Sheriff Dan exposed the hunters weren't reckless by accident, had previous convictions, won a suspended permit. Their steel core bullets, outlawed for decades, sealed their doom. Vanessa's gaffe was criminal negligence, layered deep. She'd been warned beforehand, forging violation notices on neighbors, counterfeit fines for flags or fences. At an emergency HOA meeting, she waved screenshots claiming we'd booby-trapped the land with wild livestock. She even blamed Ethan, a minor, for unsupervised, dangerous animals. Sheriff Dan, recording with his body cam, let her rant. A retired judge, Clara, interrupted, reading HOA bylaws aloud. No clause allowed hunting on private land. The room fell silent as Vanessa's lies collapsed. Clara suspended her and Dan handed her a court summons. That evening, Ethan held Tinker's red ribbon and asked if we could plant a tree where he died. I nodded, throat constricted, knowing this was about something bigger than a horsey. It was about standing up to bullies who felt rules didn't apply to them. The HOA hearing was a pressure cooker, the air heavy with heat and anger. Ethan refused to stay home, Tinker's ribbon in his pocket. The community center was packed. Trucks, sedans, even golf carts filled the lot. Inside, Vanessa sat at the head table, suit tight, face grim, flanked by loyalists. Sheriff Dan leaned by the exit, eyes sharp. The board president. Tom opened the floor and neighbors unleashed years of grievances. Vanessa's fake notices, threats over swing sets, emails about airspace codes. Then Ethan stood trembling but resolute and walked to the mic. He spoke of saving Tinker from a fair, training him with pocket money, dreaming of championships. His voice broke as he described Tinker's death, leaving the ribbon on the podium. The room locked up. Vanessa snapped, shrieking that she was defending the community, accusing us of an ambush, claiming Tinker was a trap. Tom's gavel slammed. Clara spread out. Evidence maps, emails, Vanessa's tape-recorded admission, Hunter's warrants. The board voted to have her removed. Dan served her with a summons. Vanessa ran, stepping over Tinker's ribbon, revealing her true self. The courtroom was sterile, smelling of polish and tension. Ethan sat by my side. Thus gripped, Vanessa across the aisle, appeared deflated but unyielding, her attorney whispering wildly. The prosecution was merciless. Photos, signatures, recording Hunter records. A vet's testimony on Tinker's worth. Vanessa's attorney asserted that she acted in good faith, but the facts were absolute. She testified, shifting blame monotonously, speaking of safety and hogs, never looking at Ethan. When Ethan made his victim's statement, his voice became solid, narrating Tinker's rescue, their dreams, the loss. The courtroom cried. The judge voice, heavy, adjudged Vanessa guilty, trespass, endangerment, negligence, fines, a statewide HOA ban, 500 hours at an animal rescue, and a taped apology to Ethan. Her face contorted, but she remained silent. Outside, reporters took pictures, but we walked away. Sheriff Dan gave Ethan oak seeds for Tinker's tree. We planted it under a gray sky, Ethan pressing seeds into earth, tying Tinker's ribbon to a post. Neighbors brought plants, words, a plaque, Tinker's Meadow, a youth equine program began in Tinker's name. Vanessa's residence sold. She remained unworn. The tree expanded, and occasionally in the wind, I swore I could hear Tinker's halter bell. Ethan smiled once more, guiding, healing. Vanessa believed she'd triumph with lies and clipboards, but fact and a boy's love for his horse overcame her. The ranch was ours, and so was justice.